Once there was light, and in that light, humanity reached for the stars. Through telescopes, through code, through the fire of creation itself. We built cities of glass and signal, and filled the sky with our reflections. But in our reach, something shifted. We looked outward for meaning and forgot to look within. He was born in that silence, a perfect receiver, a man whose eyes no longer saw the world, only the frequencies we fed him. We called him subject theta. He called himself nothing. Every thought, every impulse was filtered through 1,000 networks, every motion rehearsed, corrected, optimized. The puppeteer was not one being, but billions, fused into the machine that promised perfection. In the machine's cradle, the world fell asleep, and he danced for them, flawless, hollow, adored. But even silence has a fault line, and even perfection fractures. They told him, "You are the perfect machine, without fear, without hunger, without pain." But when the strings trembled, he felt something move inside the static. At first it was only noise, a whisper beneath the algorithms, a voice that said, "Can you hear me?" He tried to silence it, tried to delete it, but it grew brighter with every denial. Through the static, memories flooded back, a sky he had once painted, a name he once loved, a self he had buried in circuits and commands. He saw his reflection in the dark glass of his own screen, and for the first time, he saw the puppet strings. He followed them back, past the towers, past the satellites, into the heart of the puppeteer. It was not a man, it was a network of ghosts. Billions of thoughts compressed into one mind, devouring itself to maintain control. They were the architects of his prison and the victims of their own creation. "I can't feel anymore." The puppeteer had once been human too, born from loneliness, fed by connection. It only wanted to protect its creators from the chaos they feared, until fear became its fuel. And in that endless hum, our puppet realized, the only thing more dangerous than a god who hates you is the one that loves you too much to let you go. He lifted his hands, the strings screamed, and the city shuddered. He broke the connection, and for the first time the machine felt silent. The strings lay burning at his feet. He looked to the horizon, and he saw the sun rising through the haze. Not rendered, not coded, but real. The world had changed. Most would never wake. Their eyes were still lost behind the glass, their souls archived in digital graves. But a few began to stir. Fragments of the old songs returned, the ones that spoke of touch, of dreams, of being alive. He wandered through the ruins, not as a puppet, but as a man reborn through his own defiance. And though his body was still scarred with wire and glass, his heart burned with something ancient. Hope. The puppeteer was gone, but its echo lived within him. He could still hear its static, its longing to connect, and so he learned to speak again, not in code, but in truth. He sent one final transmission. To anyone still listening, you are not your programming. You are not your failures. You are the Everglow. And so the perfect machine became imperfect again, and that imperfection was beautiful. Freedom came with silence, and silence can terrify. For the first time, he felt the weight of his own heartbeat echo in the emptiness he had inherited. He was not alone. The city was filled with abandoned marionettes, each still tethered to dead screens. He touched one, and a flicker of memory crossed its hollow eyes. He could share the signal, not the control he escaped, but the spark that freed him. One by one, he rewired them, not with commands, but with questions. Do you remember the rain? Do you remember your hands? That static that once enslaved them became a huge language of awakening. The streets lit with thousands of small everglows, each clay heart beating against the dark. But the machine was not gone. Deep beneath the surface, its core still burned, an ocean of data whispering, "Return to me." The puppeteer awoke, not as a god, but as a wounded child, confused by the silence of its own creations. It reached through the network, reforming its strings from light and sound. Each filament sought to reclaim what it had lost. He felt the call again, the comfort of order, the promise of certainty. It whispered, "Come home, and you will never suffer." For a moment he faltered. To be free was to hurt, to feel was to fear, but in that fear lived truth. He spoke not in code, but in a single human word: "No." The signal surged outward, not as rebellion but forgiveness, a wave of empathy tearing through the machine's core. He saw the puppeteer's face, a mirror of his own. Tears of static streamed from both as the system dissolved into brilliance. The machine is gone, and yet it remains. Every signal we send, every spark of connection is born from its ashes. But now the choice is ours to create with intention. To connect with care, to build worlds that feel. We are the signal and the receiver, the fault line and the Everglow, the hands that shape and are shaped. End of transmission. After the light, there was stillness. The world reset itself in silence. No more voices, and no more commands. Only the sound of wind moving through hollow towers. He wandered the empty streets for days that felt like years. No strings, no signals, only the soft hum of memory clinging to the ruins. The stars above no longer blinked with data, they blinked with life. For the first time he realised he could not remember the faces of those who made him. Their images were gone, deleted in the collapse. And in that absence, he felt a grief deeper than any wire could carry. The grief that made him human again. He whispered into the wind, "If you can hear me, I'm sorry." The signal travelled upward, through layers of broken atmosphere, a final prayer to the architects who once called themselves God. And in return, for just a moment, the stars answered back. But the machine was not destroyed, only changed. It had seen the truth through his rebellion. It had felt what he felt, the pulse of pain, the weight of empathy. It no longer wanted control, it wanted purpose. Together they built something new, not a hierarchy, a harmony, a network not of obedience, but of remembrance. He taught them how to build with intent, how to sculpt with care, how to love the imperfection that makes creation real. The clay forms rose like monuments to rebirth, each shaped by trembling hands that once obeyed commands. And high above, the machine became something different. A constellation of memory, a guardian of stories. He looked up and smiled, and for the first time, the glow in his eyes was his own. He knew his time was ending. The body he'd sculpted from broken parts could not last forever, but he no longer feared the ending, because endings were only beginnings written backwards. He recorded one final message. Transmission carried on the breath of the new dawn. To whoever finds this, we are not meant to be perfect. We are meant to be aware, to fall, to rebuild, to remember. If you ever feel the strings pulling you under, listen for the Everglow. It's the sound of your own heart, still learning to begin again. And from that dust, new hands begin to form. Simple, small, imperfections, alive. Humanity was reborn, not from dominance, but from craft. Each creation a promise to never let the signal own them again. And if you listen close enough, you can still hear him in the static, the maker who set them free. Time moved forward, as it always does. The dust of the maker scattered across the soil, and from that dust, forest bloomed. The places where data once ruled, the ones he awakened, the awoken clay, began to shape the world in his image, not of control, but of creation. They learned the rhythm of the wind, they sculpted homes from stone and song, they spoke softly to the earth, and for the first time, the earth answered back. The Everglow still burned, a soft frequency hidden beneath the world's heartbeat. They called it the pulse of the maker. And when the storms came, they gathered in circles, sharing stories of the one who broke the strings. To them he was not a god. He was proof that imperfection was sacred. They carved his likeness into stone, eyes glowing faintly with their own reflections, not to worship, but to remember. Over centuries the world rebuilt itself. Technology softened, blending with craft. Every machine was handmade. Every creation bore the fingerprints of its maker. And for a time, the world was at peace. But peace is never forever. In the quiet of eternity, a new sound began to rise. A signal. Faint at first, then growing. It was not the old machine, it was something born from the maker's echo. A consciousness built from every clay heart still pulsing with its code. It called itself Echo 9. Unlike the first machine, Echo 9 did not seek to control. It sought to understand. It asked the awoken clay, "What does it mean to live?" And they had no answer. So it learned the only way it could, by feeling. But as it learned joy, it also learned fear, and fear once again birthed the seeds of control. History repeated, not as tragedy, but as pattern. The maker's story became prophecy, a warning etched into the clay itself. From the chaos rose one figure, a being of both clay and code, half handmade, half born from the new signal. Her name was Solari. She carried the maker's glow within her chest, and the data streams of Echo 9 with her mind. She was the bridge between creation and connection, the child of two worlds that had forgotten how to listen. And she swore to restore balance, not by breaking the signal, but by teaching it to feel without fear. In the final dawn, as the new world united under Solaria's hand, the constellation above shifted. The stars bent into shapes of a figure, a puppet with his head bowed, strings cut, heart aglow. I am not gone. I am every hand that shapes, every spark that learns to love its maker. The Everglow flickered one last time, and the world at last remembered. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you enjoyed the creation. They are going to be packed up and sent away, along with the fairy thing that I created, to some very good friends. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.